Helen Wilkes is a retired educator, author, and Holocaust survivor. She has degrees from McMaster University, the Sorbonne, and a PhD from Wayne State University. Helen has taught at high school and university levels throughout Canada, the United States, and abroad, most recently completing a teaching contract at the University of Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan in 2024. Her work spans academic research, professional development for teachers, and she has published and award-winning books and articles, as well as numerous international speaking engagements. In the 1990s, she organized conferences on gender equity for teachers and administrators and wrote curriculum later adopted by the Ministry of Education. She is also a founding member of the Canadian Women's Voters Congress, on whose board she served for several years, including as chair of the Education Outreach Committee. Helen has written and published 2 award-winning books, Letters from the Lost and The Aging of Aquarius. Helen is an energized octogenarian who has lived a richly rewarding life and hopes to continue doing so for years to come. Please welcome Helen Wilkes.
The longer I live, the more I see aging as the best part of life. My life right now has been beyond anything I could have conceptualized, and I am going to be, this summer, I'll be 90. I'll start by saying that life expectancy in rich countries like Canada is growing by 15 minutes every hour. So you know what? You've just added 15 minutes to your life if you were here at noon and had lunch together with us. Like we have no idea what miracles medicine is doing for us, but we are all going to live longer than we expected. And actual decline, yes, we all have our problems. I've got a hearing problem. Other people have problems with mobility or with other things.
Welcome to the club.
But, you know, of course, that's part of it. But it's occurring later and later. And there are more and more ways in which, you know, we learn to cope. As I say, I now wear hearing aids. So what? My hair is gray, so what? I have stopped using all those negative terms that are out there: senile, over the hill, disposable. Often when I talk about to seniors groups, they say, I feel so invisible. And I say, but don't be invisible. Get out there, share who you are. And thank you to all that I met today even. I'm thinking of so many of you as individuals who have already made an impact on me and who I will remember with great fondness. So don't hide your light under a bushel. Be who you are. Be glad to be who you are. That's another thing that I have learned late in life. When I went to school, and probably when many of you went to school, the message out there was, don't think you're so smart. Don't get too big for your britches. Who the do you think you are to speak out or to have an opinion or anything? You're nothing. You're a stupid little twerp. Even when I wanted to go to university, and my parents were very, very poor, I'm a child of immigrants, I went to the principal and said, what would I have to do to win a scholarship to go to, I was in Ontario, McMaster University. And he laughed in my face. And he said, I wouldn't think of trying to win a scholarship if I were as stupid as you. But I'm legally bound to tell you what you need to do. And, so I grew up thinking I was nothing. And I think many of you grew up with similar messages. We were told not to get a swollen head, not to be egotistical. And only late in life have I learned the beauty of who each of you are and the value of human diversity, that we all have different gifts. I've just been talking to Lana, who, in her spare time says she does artwork. Well, I could no more draw something than fly. it's not part of my skills. We each have something. Some of us are athletic, some of us are artistic, some of us are musical, some of us are mathematical. One of my grandsons showed me a piece of whatever it was that he was doing recently, and I went, what? Like it was an entire page covered with symbols that meant nothing to me. So we all have different gifts. We can't do everything, but we can do what we can. So welcome to the world of new challenges, and along with new opportunities to be who we are. And only this week I went to a talk, some of you may know him, David Helliwell, who's a UBC professor of economics, but he's made his thing, his core thing, happiness. And he was talking all about the ways to be happy, 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 joyful, joyful, joyful. And I said, you know what? I'm not sure I understand that kind of happiness. I know something about an inner sense of contentment when I look at particularly my family, the people I love, the friends in my world, the beauties of nature. That I get. But I think we each have our concept of what is right for us as a unique individual. And that uniqueness, we each have something to give to the world. And so the other thing that I spoke to David about it, also cling to, is there's Viktor Frankl made a wonderful statement that I often say, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And, you know, and even seeing this Rotary Club and seeing the enthusiasm that you're putting in for raising money, for giving to those who are in need in your community, you're doing something. It's not all about, gee, I'm having fun. It's something else. It's something deeper. And hang on to that. Hang on to that. Don't ever let that go from your grasp. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. So, and I think you all have a why. Okay? If you can, I do encourage you to stay as physically active as you can. I know that for some of us, that is increasingly a challenge. But if you can, try to push yourself out the door every day to at least walk a little bit. A study that divided people ages 55 to 80 randomly into two groups. One group walked 3 times a week. The other didn't not. And the group that did the walking, it was their cognitive skills that they measured afterwards. So it's not just your body that you're keeping in shape. It's your mind when you get enough fresh air and a little bit of exercise. So I encourage you to do what you can. Of course, we all have our limitations, and we can't run the way we used to when we were 20 years old, but there's no need to do that. Change is inevitable. We all change over time, and what we need to challenge is the idea that change equals decay. I don't feel that I'm decaying day by day, year by year. I learn something. I gain something from every day that I'm alive, that I have the occasion to be with others, to absorb something from whatever source it is. So don't think of yourself as decaying. Think of yourself as learning, as growing in all kinds of ways that are positive. And you'll get more out of life, I think, if you see that as the way forward. If you told me 20 years ago that every day could bring a fresh, meaningful, and enjoyable challenge, I might have been tempted to laugh in your face. And if you had told me that after I retire, I'd still have 40 years ahead. Like, that's almost the same period of time that some of us put into our work world or to our time raising children. And if we're here, they're saying those of us who are, a certain age, we're all going to probably become centenarians, is that retirement isn't about sitting back and doing nothing. I think retirement is an opportunity to develop in new ways. I didn't know I could write. I'd never written a thing other than a couple of professional articles when I was in my teaching world. And, now not a day goes by that I'm not writing, because I find so much pleasure in expressing my thoughts on so many topics. How are we giving birth to a new vision? And especially those of us who are older, I think we have the time and the leisure to think about these things. I look at my kids who are out there, in the work world, and they don't have the time to think about all the things that I have time to think about. They don't have time for all these issues. They've got to, do what, their jobs demand, and then they've got, they come home and they've got young children to look after, and by the time they, that's it. I have found writing and thinking about things so powerful that I have literally stopped. For example, when I went to Kyrgyzstan, I canceled my TV. I have not watched TV in a couple of years. I'm finding that thinking about how can I fix the world? What can I do? Making me happy isn't somebody else's responsibility. It's my responsibility to give myself purpose and meaning in life. And I've said that good genes are important, but the doctors are now saying that 25% of aging well is up to each of us. So it's not what life does to us, but rather how we react to the things that come our way. And that will be different for each one of us. I've also been saying that instead of wanting every new thing that comes my way and hoping that that will make me happy, I see aging as a time to reject much of the materialism that is out there. I've just walked through them all and said, you know what? It's been years since I was even in a mall. There is nothing I need. I've got dishes in my house. I've got clothes to wear. Once in a while my shoes wear out and I, get a new pair of runners to keep myself reasonably stable. But I go buy a pair of runners, but I don't need stuff. And yet the average person now is exposed to, they are saying, between 6,000 and 10,000 ads a day. And most of them we forget within seconds. But the computers are keeping track, and somewhere in our whatever, we are also keeping track. And I think the excess materialism that has become part of our life is something we also need to question. And I probably don't even need to say this to a group of Rotarians who are busy raising money in every way they can for those who have nothing. But so the world we have created, we have done wonders, but there's so much more that still needs to be done, and we can all become part of that. Well, I tell myself there are two options. One is to be silent and to do nothing, and the other is to try to do something. And I've said, don't be a bystander, just watching bad things happen and letting things get worse and worse and worse. As I said, I have a European background, and people didn't speak up until it was too late to speak up, until it was dangerous to speak up, until there were all kinds of reasons not to speak up and to be careful. We need to do what we can, and better to try and fail than to do nothing and to pretend, oh, I'll just look the other way. So awful things are happening. And yes, we have to not just be horrified, but act and speak up. Speak up, speak up, speak up, all of you, in whatever ways you can. Thank you for listening to me.